Our executive management team is here. I'll do that one more time. Welcome to our November 29th, 2022 Commissioners Consent Agenda meeting. It is our 2 o'clock meeting. It is 2:05. Let the record reflect that all 3 commissioners are present and our executive management team. I will let everyone know that we have not received any written comments for any items today. And then we will start with, and we will strike item number 2H from today's agenda. So item number 2H will be stricken from today's agenda. I will then start with our open public forum, which is a public forum to speak to anything that is not on our agenda today. So I will open that up for anyone wishing to speak on anything that is not on our agenda. Is there anyone online? Stephen, I don't know if you can watch for me. Okay, I don't see anyone here. Second call for anyone wishing to testify on anything that's not on our agenda today. Third and final call. Seeing no one on Zoom and no one in our audience, I will close the open public forum and I will look to my fellow commissioners.
So, Madam Chair, I would move that we approve item 2A through, give me a minute, I'm still going through the alphabet here. A through double H as presented on today's agenda, excluding item 2H.
I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve items number 2A through double H, excluding item 2H. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. That then will take us to our public hearing items. The first one is item number 3A, to adopt an ordinance regarding use of wheeled all-terrain vehicles. I believe Matt Koza.
Good afternoon, all, and I do have a PowerPoint presentation. Here we are. As the board will recall, I briefed on this a couple weeks ago. This is a proposed ordinance to allow the use of wheeled all-terrain vehicles, abbreviated WATVs, in Spokane County. Next slide, please. Thank you. There is a statute that authorizes the county to do so. Unless the county does something, wheeled all-terrain vehicles are not allowed in the county. Next slide, please. Wheeled all-terrain vehicles, here's the statutory definition. It's pretty wordy. I'll give a couple examples here in a second, but it includes things that have wheels and either handlebars like a dirt bike, or the utility type vehicles like the Polaris Rangers. It doesn't include snowmobiles, tracked vehicles, and golf carts. That's per the DOL. Next slide, please. This is typically what we're talking about. So, you know, 4-wheelers and then the utility 4-wheelers. Next slide, please. So the requirements from the statute and through the DOL, it's some of the same requirements as any other vehicles on the roads. They have to be registered, titled, they need a small license plate like a motorcycle license plate, and operators need a valid driver's license to drive these vehicles. Next slide. As far as the physical requirements of the vehicles, it's a lot of the same equipment and safety equipment as cars and motorcycles. So headlights, taillights, brake lights, etc., mirrors, windshields, mufflers, seatbelts. So it has to have certain equipment and safety materials on the vehicles in order to be eligible. Next slide, please. Finally, in order for a WATV to be eligible for operation for licensing through the DOL, it has to be documented at a safety inspection by a dealer or a repair shop. The operator or the person applying for the registration has to release liability, and the operator has to obey all traffic laws while on the road. So they have to, in a lot of ways, act like any other vehicle on the road. Next slide, please. If an operator of a WATV fails to comply with either the statute, so that would include the registration requirements, or operating on a county road that's not part of this ordinance. That would be a traffic infraction, and they cannot hunt from the WATV unless they're following the permits through the agency that licensed that. Next slide, please. Number of other jurisdictions have adopted similar ordinances here. You can see 17 counties, and underlined are the counties that have a population bigger than Spokane County. So this isn't exclusively for the smaller rural counties. And at least 90 cities, maybe more, have adopted similar ordinances. I do note that Spokane and Spokane Valley do not allow the use of WATVs on the public roadways there. And final slide, please. This is just a link to some helpful resources that I found helpful. The DOL has a whole page on this, MRSC, of course, and then there's a WATV interest group that keeps tabs on this, that keeps track of which cities and counties have done this. So the proposal for the board today is to adopt this ordinance. It will allow the use of WATVs on public roadways and state highways in Spokane County. We've consulted with the Public Works Department. This is good to go from an engineering standpoint. I know that County Engineer Matt Zaracore has reached out to the Department of Transportation. That's a requirement for the county to enact this statute. Risk management in the sheriff's office has also weighed in, and the proposal here is that the county would adopt an ordinance that allows WATVs to the maximum extent allowed by the authorizing statute. So all roads in Spokane County with a speed limit of 35 miles per hour or less would be eligible for people to operate WATVs on, if those people and the WATVs meet all the DOL licensing requirements. And really, the county doesn't have to get involved with the DOL with the licensing and registration requirements. That's all through the DOL. So just if there's any dispute about whether something's eligible or whether a person is eligible for this, that's between the applicant and the DOL. All the county's doing here is passing this to allow operation on county roads pursuant to the statute.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Okay, this is a public hearing item then. And so I will open up the public hearing item for number 3A to adopt an ordinance regarding the use of wheeled all-terrain vehicles. Anyone wishing to testify? I have someone who's signed up but is saying he may or may not want to. And if you could state your name and title or name and address for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I won't need that much. My name is Lee Bowling. I have spent about 1.5 years trying to get, this adopted. I want to thank you for your time and for taking a look at this. I do fully support the resolution as it was published in the website. And a special thank you to Commissioner Cooney for the time that you and Brenda spent talking with me about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Second call for anyone wishing to testify on item number 3A. Third and final call. Is there anyone raise hand or *9 if you're on the phone? Seeing none, then I will close the open public testimony and look to my fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that we adopt an ordinance regarding use of wheeled all-terrain vehicles as presented today.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh,
No, no one.
There's no one, Ron?
No,
okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye again.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That will now take us to item number 3B, which is to amend the Spokane County Code, Chapter 7.40 pertaining to cable television systems. I'm not sure if Matt Koza is going to start or if Brian Grogan is going to.
Mr. Grogan will take this. He's outside counsel the county's hired on this, and he's taking the leading role on this. So I'll turn this over to Mr. Grogan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Just quickly, a sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So today you have before you a proposal to revise Chapter 740 of the code. This provision of the code deals with cable television systems. A little point of interest is most of this code was drafted in 1978. And so that's over 40 years old. Much has changed in the delivery of cable television in those 40 years, and that really necessitated an update to the code. Next slide, please. So today I'm going to briefly just review the history of how we got here, the input that we received from the cable operators serving the county, quick summary of the provisions, and then the recommendation. Next slide. So this all started because Comcast, that has served the county now since 1991 under an existing contract, requested renewal of that franchise. And so that started the process of us looking at the contract, trying to update it, and then finding some rather antiquated provisions in the code. At the same moment we were doing that, TDS came knocking on the county's door and asked for a competitive franchise to provide new fiber and new cable service to county residents. That franchise for TDS was adopted earlier this year, and we are in the process of completing the Comcast franchise renewal. But as a result of those negotiations, it has then led to the desire and need to update the Chapter 740. Next slide. We did seek input from both Comcast and TDS to make sure that we had their thoughts and observations and business ideas about the code. We tried to make sure that all of the provisions we were modifying were commercially reasonable. We sent that to the contact people that you see listed here in the second bullet point. Next slide. We did incorporate many of the changes that the operators proposed, but not every one of their proposed changes. In many cases, staff believed that it was appropriate to maintain certain regulations in the code. And so we did not make every single change requested by the operators. Then we made a number of changes that we believe necessary to bring the code up to speed with the current state of the law and the state of the industry. Next slide. Summary of the revisions. Again, because it's a 40-year-old code provision, we tried to update the intent based on the reality of what cable television is today in the marketplace compared to what it was when it was just beginning in the 70s. We updated many of the defined terms to keep pace with what the FCC rules are and what federal regulations require. We did away with the Cable Advisory Board simply because it was listed in the code, but frankly no longer meets and provides advice to the county commissioners. Redefined how a cable franchise would interact with the code, changed and modified the way franchise fee payments are handled, in particular changing it from a semi-annual payment to the county to the more normal quarterly payments that most jurisdictions in Washington state use. We deleted all provisions regarding rate regulation because the federal law now prohibits municipalities from regulating cable television rates due to competition in the industry. We changed the subscriber complaint procedures to reflect more normal procedures with automated systems that both operators use. Also changed the review process if they should choose to sell or transfer the cable franchise. Next slide. We also modified the way in which the code interacts with the cable franchise to make certain that where we had potential conflicts, there was a clear line of authority so that the county would know which provisions govern. We also changed some provisions related to indemnification and bonding to provide, again, greater clarification to the operators and to make sure that the county was protected in the event a claim should be raised. Similar modifications to maps and records to reflect the state of the industry today. Many of the operational standards were 40 years out of date, and so those were modified to reflect new fiber optics that are now being utilized in cable systems. We again changed local programming requirements, which allow, for example, residents to view this meeting on the local cable systems, pushing many of those provisions now into the actual franchise contract. We also streamlined somewhat the application process for a franchise, kind of eliminating the process that was undertaken 40 years ago before we had some of those issues clarified at the state and federal level. And then finally, we updated the renewal process to again remain consistent with what federal law now requires. Next slide. This is the final slide. Based on that overview, the staff recommends adoption of Chapter 740 as revised. I believe that's in your packet in a clean format today. And I would be happy to answer any questions that the commissioners may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Any other questions? I'm not seeing any, so that will take me to opening up a public hearing on item number 3B to amend Spokane County Code Chapter 7.40 pertaining to cable television systems. First call for anyone wishing to testify. Again, if you're on the phone, *9 or use the raise hand function if you're on Zoom. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience. Is there anyone online? No. Second call for anyone wishing to testify. I'm not seeing anyone. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify on item number 3B. Seeing none, with that, I will then close the public hearing and look to my fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move that we accept the recommendation from staff and amend Spokane County Code Chapter 7.40 pertaining to cable television systems.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us then to item number 3C, which is to consider increasing the tax revenue from 2022 for 2023 in order to discharge the expected expenses and obligations of Spokane County in conjunction with the general fund, county road fund, and conservation futures. And we're joined by Randy Bischoff and Tessa Sheldon. I'm not sure who's. Okay. I will let you do that and let you guys do the presentation.
Here's our budget presentation on the levy. Next slide. So assuming we do no tax increase this year, we will collect about $59.7 million in property taxes for the county general fund. As you'll see on the right, our authorized limit is $1.80 per thousand of assessed value. And if we do the taxes at the 59.7 million, we'll be down to about 72 cents per $1,000. Next slide. And so a couple of options. One is to do nothing and bank the 1% increase, or two, we can do a 1% increase, which increases the revenue about $680,000 and does not increase our bank capacity. Next slide. The county roads. Right now, we are estimated to collect about $28.6 million for the county roads. Again, on the right-hand side, the county roads maximum is $2.25 per thousand. Assuming we go at the 28.6 million, that will take us down to about 93 cents per thousand. So a little bit under half. Next slide. Some options that the commissioners have, of course, is to do no increase and bank the additional capacity. You could take a 1% increase, which is $282,000. Or you could take a 1% increase and you could do a road shift, levy shift of up to 6.5 million. Or if you did no increase, you could actually shift up to $6.7 million. Next slide. County conservation futures. We will get about 2.3 million for the conservation futures this year with no increase. Our statutory limit is 8.25 cents per thousand. And if we do this, this will take us to 2.6 cents. Next slide. And again, the two options, the zero increase, increasing our bank capacity, or we do the 1%, which will give us about $21,000, and we does not increase our capacity. And the next slide. These are just an example of what this does to our residents. So the median home price in 2022 assessed value was $320,000. For 23, that is median house price goes up to $418.8 thousand, which is a 30% increase. So last year on your property tax statement, if you had a median home priced home, you would have paid $330 in county tax, and that would apply to all residents of the county. And to those residents living in the unincorporated area, they would have paid $378 in road tax for a total bill of $708.60. If we do no shift, all residents of the county, their tax for that same house would go down to about $313,000 this year. For those in the unincorporated area, their tax bill will be about $392 for a total of $705 if you live in unincorporated, and again the $313 if you live in an incorporated spot. And you can see that if you did a zero increase with a full shift of $6.7 million. The next column is those same information with a 1% increase and no road shift. Between the zero increase and the 1% increase, those are the ones that get you closest to what an individual in the unincorporated area paid last year. But those in the incorporated areas still would pay less. And the very last one is if you did a 1% increase in the full 6.5 million shift. Next slide. And we just have the levy certification will be next week based upon your decisions today. Any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner French.
So this is my 12th time to be through this process. And this is the most thorough and most understandable presentation I've seen since I've been here. So thank you to staff for putting this together. I mean, even I understood it. It was well done and a really good explanation of kind of the relative impacts of different decisions. So thank you.
I'll echo what Commissioner French said. I mean, amen. This is the infographics, the way you have it laid out. This is what I think the three of us have asked for every single year I've been here, and you delivered that. Thank you so much. This is extremely easy to understand. The way it's laid out. That this is a great tool that I think we need to share with the public too, just so they understand what it is we're doing here and what impact it does or doesn't have.
And we will be posting this on our website so that they can see this as well.
Wonderful.
And thank you.
Yes, thank you. Great job. With that, this is an open public hearing. This is a public hearing item, so I will open up the public hearing for item number 3C that was just presented. So anyone wishing to testify online, use the raise hand function or *9 if you're on the phone. First call for anyone wishing to testify. See no one here, no one online. Second call for anyone wishing to testify. third and final call for anyone wishing to testify. Seeing no one online or no one on Zoom and no one here, I will close the public testimony and look to my fellow commissioners.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to go ahead and read the motion into the record, and then I'd like to comment on my motion afterwards. But Madam Chair, I hereby move in conjunction with increasing the tax revenue for 2022 for 2023 in order to discharge the expected expenses and obligation of Spokane County in conjunction with general fund, county road fund, and conservation futures as follows. $0 for the general fund, which is a 0% increase in revenue from the previous year. $0 for the road fund, which is a 0% increase in revenue from the previous year. $0 for the conservation futures, which is a 0 increase in revenue from the previous year. All increases in tax revenues that could have occurred from 22 to 2023 in each fund are banked as provided by law.
I will second the motion.
I have a motion and a second discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. All three of us have just completed a campaign for reelection, and I think all three of us were out in the community talking to our constituents. And from my standpoint, for people in my district, the two things that I heard most often at the doorstep was keep me safe, public safety, number one. A lot of people are concerned about the increased crime rate that's going on, that's being impacted in our community. A lot of it being the result of decisions made at the state legislature and the national level, but still it impacts us at homes, and people are very concerned about that. Number two, taxes. People are afraid of what next year looks like for them. They are weary. Inflation has devalued their dollar. And there are still new taxes yet to be experienced by our taxpayers next year as a result of the legislature. I think the carbon tax goes into effect January 1, and I hear estimates of anywhere from 45 to 50 cents per gallon as an increase in their gas tax, as well as other increased fees. So our taxpayers are just weary, and seniors are the ones that are the most afraid. I had one lady actually cry at the doorstep because she was afraid she was going to get taxed out of her home. A lot of folks said, can you raise the limits for eligibility for senior exemption? And I explained to them that's something that's controlled at the state level, not at the county level. And they said, please advocate for us because we need help. You know, the county is in a good financial state right now. We've made some tough decisions over the years that has improved not only our efficiency, our effectiveness, but has also allowed us to grow reserves. Those reserves are taxpayer dollars. And so it's times like this that I am, as a commissioner, more inclined to look at reserves to cover anticipated expenses for next year than to look at my taxpayers who are already suffering. So for that reason, I make the motion that we give the taxpayers at least what relief we can as the county. I understand that school districts, while we are capped at 1%, school district levies can increase based upon assessed valuation. State taxes can increase by assessed valuation. We are capped at 1%, so it doesn't matter how much your assessed valuation increased. We can't increase the taxes by more than 1%, but for a lot of folks, the 1% is the difference between whether they stay in their home or they don't. So for all of those reasons, Madam Chair, I'm going to support the motion for the that was offered up. Thank you.
I will also be voting yes today to not increase taxes. I think this is a fantastic thing that our county has worked hard to get to a financial situation where we're able to do this today. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there, in other jurisdictions that will utilize these tax increases. And even when you look up here and, when you look at the difference, some people will say it's only $5. Well, it's not just $5. It's another $5 on top of everything else. What we're seeing, there's a lot of cities that are not giving their citizens a break. There's school districts that are not giving their citizens a break. We live in a state that is certainly not giving its citizens a break. So anything that we can do here at the county level by using smart, fiscally responsible policies and the way that we operate this county to be able to pass along even a little bit of savings, I think that is a win for everybody across the board. And I'm honored to take this vote today. And I hope folks realize we're doing the best we can here, and we're going to deliver you a cost-effective, efficient government. And this year, we're going to do it without raising your taxes.
Okay, thank you. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. That concludes that part of our meeting. We will now go on to our public roundtable hearing number 3, which this is a continuation from our Tuesday, November 8th, 2:00 meeting that discusses our budget. So this is the third and final public roundtable hearing that we have on our budget. We will be voting next Monday, December 5th at 10 a.m. have our budget hearing at that point to vote on our budget. So with that, I will ask Tessa and Randy if you'd like to do a presentation.
Thank you. Alrighty, today we'll be presenting on all funds rolled up together. So there are more funds than just the general fund, which we've already presented on in roundtables 1 and 2. All of our funds summed for 2023 come to a total of $873.3 million. That is our continuing appropriations, so our grant funds that we may have received some of this year that we'll continue to spend on next year, as well as all of our annual operating dollars. This is a jump from 2022's budget, and the reasons for our total increasing by so much is due in part to $100 million in ARP funds. We have all of that budgeted and available to be spent starting next year. And we have $30 million for bond proceeds for the small arms range project and $30 million for the capital project for the small arms range. So we have to have kind of a double budgeting situation for that one. So that's a large portion of the increase from the 2022 to 2023's total budget. This slide is just a breakdown of the annual operating expenditures and revenues compared to the continuing appropriations or our grant funding. So our special revenue funds have a lot of continuing appropriations, state mental health dollars and things like that, as well as all of our grants from the federal government for the ARP funds and other state and federal programs. All right, the next slide is our general fund. And our general fund estimate has changed from previous slides, and we discussed this yesterday at our budget workshop. The total general fund estimate currently is $242.1 million, and that is including the continuing appropriations. We are planning on spending about $127.7 million in the public safety arena next year. So that's majority of that is our jail and our sheriff's department. We have about $4.5 million planned for Parks and Recreation in the general fund next year. We have our Justice Division, which would be our Superior Court and District Court and Clerk of the Superior Court, totaling about $43.4 million. We have General Government, which is $26.1 million. That's a lot of our auditor, assessor, treasurer type functions that just keep government running. And then we have $37 million in kind of other small groups. That would be some internal services, some of our PDAs, and economic development opportunities and things of that nature.
And as you'll note on the right-hand side, we've kind of summed up the different categories. So you'll see for 2023, we have about $164.7 million. That's just for salaries and benefits, which is 68% of the general fund budget. Last year, that compares to $154.4 million, which was 65.1%. This budget does include an increase in head count of 12, 8 of which were for public safety and justice.
Next up, we have our special revenue funds. There are a lot of individual special revenue funds, and so we kind of categorized them into a couple different groups here. First, we have our emergency communications, which is 6% of the total of special revenue funds. And those funds are 911 communication and emergency communication sales tax. And the bulk of that money goes to SHREC to run our emergency communications system. We have mental health services, which is about 17% of our budget. This is both the behavioral health ASO unit that community services runs and the mental health sales tax 0.1%. Other is just a small 3%, and those are groups like our probation fund and some other kind of auditor O&M fund. They're just small little ones. We have human services, 11% of special revenue funds. And those are like our developmental disabilities, more of our community services groups. The county roads budget is 20% of the special revenue funds. I believe it's right around $72 million next year. And they have some really great projects planned that we've already seen, and the board has already adopted the county roads 6-year plan. And we've provided a link here for that 6-year plan if anybody wanted to go and review the projects for next year. We have real estate excise taxes, which is about 4%, and those taxes are used to do various capital projects and parks projects around the county. Federal and state grants is our largest portion of special revenue funds at 33%. That is where, again, the American Rescue Plan Act funds are. And we've provided a link here to the American Rescue Plan Act website, where everybody can see how those dollars have been allocated and all of the contracts associated with that money. We have economic development, which is all of our TIF and LIFT funds. So those are our tax increment financing areas. We have several of those throughout the county, as well as the Liberty Lake LIFT community area. And then our final fund, it's 0%, but still big in our hearts, is our veteran services. And we provided a link to the great services that that tiny little fund provides. And there was no planned increase in FTEs for any special revenue fund. Next up, debt service funds, not a lot of money. Debt service funds account for the accumulation of resources for and the current year payment of principal and interest on certain bond activities. So we only have 2 debt service funds. We have debt service for projects, and that is related to a Vista Stadium concession stand debt from years and years ago. And then we also have the Medical Lake TIF, which is the tax increment financing for the Medical Lake area for a series of bonds that have been issued for those projects out there. And we have over $1.5 billion of debt capacity still available to us as a county. So said another way, we have only used 10% of our available debt capacity. Next up are construction funds. This is where we see a good example of that double budgeting that's increasing our budget for the small arms range project. We have both the capital project in a campus improvement, and then we also have the bond portion of the project in this capital projects financed by bonds. We also have some parks capital projects planned next year. That's only 3% of our total. $67.9 million estimated spend for 2023. Next up, we have our enterprise funds. The largest enterprise fund is sewer and the sewer system. We have several funds that kind of make up this group. It's sewer operations and construction. And the board has also already adopted the sewer 6-year plan. So all of those projects are included in this budget. We have the aquifer protection area, which is 2% of the enterprise funds budgets. Building and planning is 6%, and a portion of planning is also funded by the general fund, long range planning. Otherwise, all building activities and planning activities are accounted for in this fund. We have our stormwater utility, which has some ongoing capital projects funded by ARP funds. We have solid waste, which is our landfill and transfer stations, and then waste management out at the dumps. We have golf course, which is 4% of the total budget. Golf course had some capital projects, but those have all been completed. So this is pretty much an operating budget for them for next year. And we operate 3 separate golf courses out of that fund. And then the last is our fair, Fair and Expo. That includes the annual interstate fair as well as ongoing maintenance out at the fairgrounds. Alrighty, internal service funds. We are a self-insured county, so we have our own medical and dental insurance, which is about almost 50% of our internal service fund budgets. And that is why over here on our breakdown, our services are about $59 million. And most of that is the medical and dental fund payments. We also have our information technology department. That's about 14% of our internal service fund spend for 2023. IT provides computers and connectivity for all county departments. We have Public Works Finance, which is an internal service fund. They provide services to both county road and sewer funds, as well as ER&R funds to manage all of the accounting for the complex public works system. We have the ER&R fund, which is equipment rental and revolving, or revolving and rental. I always get the R's confused. 19% of the spend, and that is where county road and the sewer groups rent their equipment from this fund to manage all of their construction projects. And then our last internal service fund is our liability, unemployment, and workers' comp, and those are again self-insurance. So the county pays out quite a bit, up to a certain amount for liability insurance, and that is all accounted for in this fund.
And so next, so here's just all the funds, budgeted expenses, total 873, excuse me, 0.3 million. The general fund portion of that is 242.1 million. And all expenditures and our estimates may change prior to budget adoption next week. Any questions?
Or any questions for Randy or Tessa?
I'll just kudos to another fantastic presentation. The layout is very easy to understand. It's put together very well. So great work. All three roundtables. The presentations have been stellar.
Very good. Thank you very much. So again, as the next steps are shown, the budget will be adopted December 5th, which is a Monday at 10 a.m. So that'll be our budget hearing to adopt the budget. And then certification will happen, the levy certification decision will be on December 6th at our normal 2 o'clock. So with that, though, this is an open public hearing. So on the budget roundtable hearing number 3, so all funds expenditure estimates. So I will open up the public hearing for anyone wishing to testify on our expenditures. I see someone coming forward. You'll need to fill out a yellow slip after, but please state your name and address for the record. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, County Commissioners. My name is Diana Wilhite. My address is 1010 South Sunnyvale Lane in Spokane Valley. And I too would like you to know how much we appreciate this presentation. For someone in the public, it's a very complicated budget that you have, but I like the way you laid it out. So it's easy for the public to take a look at it and figure out where all that money is going from, because that money all comes from us. And so thank you very much to the staff for that great presentation. And I'd also like to throw in a pitch for the remaining ARP funds that you have, that you still are going to be allocating. And remember that even though many of us may live under city limits, we're all county employee and county residents. And so I look forward to hearing about how the rest of that ARP money is being spent. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Second call for anyone wishing to testify. I'm not seeing anyone online. Again, raise hand function if you're on Zoom, or *9 if you're on the phone. Third and final call from anyone wishing to testify. Seeing no one online or in the audience, I will close the public hearing. And so that closes the public testimony for us on our budget hearings. This has been the third one of 3. So appreciate the comments. So thank you. And Diana, make sure you fill out a yellow form. Thank you. Okay. So with that, then Scott, are there any other items for today?
We do have 2 exec session items. I didn't know if there was, I don't have any of the miscellaneous myself.
Okay, then can you, Mark, will you state the reasons? And
I'm getting was there a continuation that we wanted to have? My apologies if I missed something.
Well, yeah,
I left early, so I don't know.
yeah. So the board and commission committee conversation, we had some questions that came up yesterday. And so I think that conversation we want to continue on today. We can either do it now or later, either way. And so whatever be the pleasure of the board. But I think that's the only other thing that I can think of that we had. There was part of the conversation we didn't want to have without you there. And so we thought we'll just bump it to tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And we can just have it now.
either way.
Yeah, I think let's, I don't have the list in front of me. Do you?
The only list I've got is this one. Yeah, so I think part of the conversation we were having yesterday was about the composition of the health board and whether we really wanted to expand it to 5 commissioners or we wanted to just keep it at 3.
Mhm.
And part of that conversation was you've served as chair now for 2 years.
2
on the
years,
health bill,
yes.
And now you're going to be the WASAC president for next year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you've probably hit your maximum threshold for health district board. So I did have a conversation with Mayor Freeman last night. And so he has said, as you indicated yesterday, he was willing to serve as chair for the health district next year, but he wanted the county commissioner to be his vice chair. And so I asked him if he would be open to the idea of having newly elected Commissioner Amber Waldrop as his vice chair. And he said, yes, I have worked with her before when she was on the city council, and that would be fine from his standpoint as well. So I think that addresses one of the concerns about having a county commissioner, because I got the clear distinction that Commissioner Kearns was not jumping up and down to be that vice chair. And as I've said and experienced, and once again this week, several of the state boards that I serve on meet at the same time the health board meets. So again, the health board will be meeting this Thursday and I will be in Bellingham. Not by choice, but that's where the board meeting is going to be. So, so the conversation yesterday was, do we really need a 5-member health district board, or can we keep it at 3? And the nice thing about keeping it at 3 is that we don't have to go through that process of trying to find new board members and doing the recomposition of the board and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we left the conversation is, what do we want the board to look like next year? If we keep it at 5, I'm happy to volunteer to step off just because I've got other conflicts. What's that?
Keep it at 3.
Keep it at 3. I'm sorry. Keep it at 3. Thank you. So, if we wanted to appoint Ms. Waldriff to the Health District Board, she'd certainly take my place, and God bless her, and that's great. But then do we want to expand the board or not? One question. And then 2, do we want to make Amber that other commissioner on the board because of her history and experience with the board? So that's kind of where we left it. We couldn't take it any further because we didn't have you there and we wanted to have your input as well.
So on that, as long as we can stay at 3 commissioners on the Board of County, on the health board, I'm, completely fine with that. As to who becomes vice chair, is a decision that will be before the health board on Thursday. So they'll be making that decision, and we actually won't be appointing others. I mean, that's just all hypothetical, that Amber, because we're not appointing board members until January.
Well, theoretically, we could appoint them this year, and there's no reason for us to delay it until January. We could go ahead and make those appointments this year so that the board, the health board, as well as other boards could go ahead and continue to function and know who's going to be on the board. And it would also provide the new commissioners any transition time to be able to get up to speed with whatever the requirements are going to be for that board prior to January 1. So we wouldn't necessarily have to put it off until next year.
I would think the new commissioners might have just thoughts on what boards they might want to sit on or not. I have no idea what any of their decisions are.
Yeah, I was under the assumption that we would be setting boards for 2023 in December, because I'm sure Gina, next week, you're probably going to start getting emails from these boards saying which commissioners are on these boards, because we need to do orientation, we need to get calendars set, we need to get everything set up. So I just assume, every other year we have set them in December. I think that's always how it's been. So,
So are we going to be seeking inputs? The election was certified today.
okay.
So
Yeah. I think we should certainly encourage the 2 new members to, send us a list of priorities. Are there boards you want? Are there boards that potentially you don't want? I think we should definitely ask them to share with us what their desires are, but I just think logistically, it has to be acted on in December. So those boards can then connect with the new members. If there's an orientation, if they want them to come in, give it, probably half the boards I was given a binder ahead of time, say, this is what we do, or come in like with STA. I know when I was on that, I went in for probably like a 2-hour orientation with a kind of STA 101 for them to bring me up to speed before I was ever on my first actual meeting of that board. So I was assuming we would do it in December, just because that's even with 3 members, if a new member's coming in, they don't come in till January, but those boards were set in December before that new 3rd member came in. So
this is all new territory, having 2 additional commissioners. So
yeah,
it's just one of those that I think it'd be, they would want to be part of the decisions.
well, I think they definitely need to be a part of the discussion, but so I think we should ask them, what do you want?
Okay.
So.
So are you,
So beyond that, back to the health district.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we're appointing members now, again, because Amber is having no choice. I mean, it's like, I feel like she should be part of the discussion. So
Mm.
Thursday is when we'll be picking chair and vice chair.
Yeah.
And so that'll be, if the Board of Health chooses to delay that, that's a choice the Board of Health can make. That's not a choice for the Board of County Commissioners to make. And
think
we have to
correct.
be, we have to be in our
Right.
role of
Yeah.
the health district. So,
right?
so anyway, thank you for the information. And I would agree that we keep, the health district to 3.
So should we ask Gina to send out the list of boards and commissions that we sit on, and as Commissioner Kearns has indicated, have the 2 new commissioners give us a priority or
Yeah.
a list of
That makes
interest and
sense.
stuff, and then we
Mhm.
can have this conversation again, on Monday?
I'm trying to think when we normally do. It's
Well, it's
usually mid-December,
Yeah,
we,
it-
we,
well,
it would
we
usually-
set the board, but yeah, I mean,
It'd probably be,
get-
I would
give 'em-
say the
give them the
following.
week to look over the list and just say, hey, what interests do you have? Are there any issues that are important to you? Or
It's
do
on
you
the
think,
12th.
or issues you think you'd like to dive into? So,
Well,
and we'll try to accommodate that.
well, in our work sessions on Monday are public meetings
Yeah,
and stuff,
They can
so
always
we
come.
could
too.
invite them to the meeting and have them show up and be
Mhm.
part of a conversation if they'd like.
So I would say Monday, December 12th at the 9 a.m. meeting. Okay,
That's fine.
that gives them a week to have the information.
Yeah.
That's right, because we usually set
Yes.
the calendar, the same meeting.
Yeah.
Yep. Has Commissioner Keeney, has Wasac set their schedule so we can block out the certain weeks that on our, or do you just want to do January's, Gina, or do you want to do the whole year? Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
so
we
say-
have WASAC schedules, so I'm happy
Okay.
to
Okay,
get that
well, we
information.
can, then I think we can definitely put those things then on a yearly calendar, just block out the Wasac weeks. And GSI, I know GSI has set the Olympia fly-in. I think maybe they've done the DC date. Do we know? Just, do you know? Okay,
Yeah, I haven't
Okay.
seen anything
I-
for DC
I
yet.
know they have the Olympia date set,
Yeah,
but, okay. But yeah, things like that we can start blocking off too,
Okay.
so.
No, set the calendar. Yeah, I'm happy to. So we'll have that for the 12th to see if they can attend and set the calendars and boards and commissions.
And then in looking at the list of the boards that we sit on,
Mhm.
are there any that you think would sit,
we
that,
sit
that
on
maybe
or appoint
today,
to?
no, that we sit on,
oh, we
that
said,
maybe today have one commissioner that would consider having 2, since 2 isn't a quorum of commissioners anymore? Like maybe the reason that they only had one commissioner was to not create a quorum of commissioner. I mean, and I don't know, maybe that's something we need to over the next week kind of go through and think. Are there any that currently only sit one commissioner that
That would,
may be interested in having 2? If
yeah,
if
that
it's
would be a
not done by
discussion for that
interlocal.
organization.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, so,
Specifically, I'm trying to, I don't know how some of those other
yeah,
boards, I mean, like the airport board is not going to want to have an additional
no,
commissioner.
probably not.
So,
But like, I'm looking at things like Solid Waste Advisory Committee, potentially. Another one, or Visit Spokane.
Yeah.
May not
When
mind having
I
a
think in
second
the
commissioner,
future,
things like
as we
that.
have boards and commissions, we're going to have a recap from people, the commissioner that is on those boards and
Mhm.
commissions, come back and report back to the board.
Yeah.
So that way everyone's aware, because everyone can't be on every board. So we have not done a very good job of that in the past. And so I think that would be a better way to do it. And that way then it's not, because I think there's a lot of boards that are already too big
Some are.
out there that they probably
Some
don't want
are.
to have another. So I don't know, but that would be a question we would have to send out to each of those
Yeah.
entities that
Mhm.
we'd be looking to
Yep.
add to.
Mhm. Yeah, but like you and I later this week, we're on the wastewater policy advisory board. There's two of us on that.
Mhm.
Do we keep two or do we maybe go to three? I don't know. It's just,
I'm happy
Not
to
sure.
let somebody else do that.
I'm just wondering,
I would,
things like that, are they, it'd be just interesting to know, or interested to know if there's any of them out there that would say, yeah, we'll take an extra commissioner on our board. I don't know. And so,
yeah,
don't know.
Well, the other part of it is that a lot of the boards are created by interlocal agreements.
And,
So we'll
and
have to go
statute,
back.
like STA, we would not be able to put another one because that
No,
was
that-
set by
that's
the,
created by state
yes,
statute.
state changed
Yeah.
up the makeup. So some of them we're not going to be able to, but I'm just wondering, are there some that potentially we could have
Yeah.
an additional seat on? Not sure.
yeah. Well, and I know like the Valley Chamber will probably stay with one
Mhm.
just because, there's a report in as to that and that takes too long already. So
What was that?
there's a
The-
report in as to what's going on at the county or the city of the Valley or Liberty Lake. And so that already takes up too much time of the board meeting that they would not be having another board member, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that you're right. Maybe there are some boards that, we might need to increase our representation on. I
Like,
hadn't thought about that. Yeah.
well, like GSI, I mean, we pay the amount of money that we give to
Yeah.
them is actually enough to have a majority of
It's-
of us, but we
That is set in
haven't.
their
We've
bylaws.
only done one, but
It was
you
a
know,
bylaw change.
yeah, but having, I mean, we spend, the amount we spend is equal to like 3 memberships on there that would get us seats, but I know we've never pushed that hard to get additional. We got us on the executive committee, but just wondering, should we have a second one that's just on the board, not on the executive committee, but have 2 that just sit on the regular board. Again, not creating a quorum because it's only 2 and 3 is a quorum. I don't know, just things like that to look at.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think, again, each of those will still be, what's statutory, what's an interlocal agreement, and what is, the bylaws, because like GSI has their own bylaws. It's not an interlocal agreement, but they have their own bylaws that are voted on. So. Okay.
What a great idea this was.
Not that any of us pushed it. So,
I'm
yep,
Just saying.
forced upon us.
Yeah.
So,
All righty.
okay.
So I think that's the only other item that we finished up with.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Keeney, when you left, I think we only had a few more of the boards that we appointed to, but it was. You were there for GMA steering committee, right? When we
Yeah.
discussed that.
I think I was leaving just
Were
as
you?
that one
Okay,
was going.
okay.
Mhm.
Again, that one was through interlocal. SWAC was another one we talked about. It's 1 citizen at large per commissioner. But we were thinking, keep that 1 per district per commissioner. I mean, adding 2 more to that board isn't probably gonna
Make a difference.
hinder its
Mhm.
ability to operate. Veterans Advisory. That was the one that you weren't there for that. And we
Right.
talked about 1 per commissioner per district and 2 at large. Is that what we?
I think
Kat's with us. Kat, is that what we just? Well, yeah, today that's what it is, but we were going on, that would make that board much larger. I mean, that'd be adding 6 people to that board. I think,
That's correct.
do we remember? Was it?
Yeah, you
one
both
per
had, you both had discussed changing to 1 per district, which would be 5, and then 2 at large, which would keep the board at 7, which is
Okay.
what the current composition is.
So. Yeah, okay. And I think you were there for the rest of the board discussion.
Okay.
And the other topic we started to touch on, and I don't think we got a resolution on, is if we appoint by district, do they have to live in the district or not? And do they have to be in the unincorporated area or not? Because the two new commissioner districts, their unincorporated areas drastically reduced from the three of our districts and stuff. And so, pardon?
It's like, I mean, this is ballpark. I don't know for a fact, but I want to say it's only like 10% of each of those
Right.
other two districts is even unincorporated county. It's like
Right.
90% is within the city. So if it's putting a requirement that it has to be an unincorporated county, that really shrinks the area. So
I
is it
thought
some,
that we asked Mark to look into that.
Yeah. okay, I wasn't sure if you were
Okay.
still,
Okay.
Yes.
I wasn't sure at what point you
Yes.
left, if that was, if we had that discussion before you left or after, but.
I
okay.
believe I actually came up with that idea.
I think that's it in terms of what we did yesterday.
Are we ready for the executive sessions today then?
Oh, yeah, I am.
All right. So we have two executive sessions under pending and potential litigation, RCW to 4230-110-1I. First one is with Kalispell. The other is with the opioid settlement. We anticipate 15 minutes for each. No action is anticipated. We would like the executive management team, the Board of County Commissioners, myself, and Dale Anderson from our office and me.
Very good. So it is now, oh, yes, sorry.
Refresh my memory. Are we part of the Monsanto settlement? And so at some point, can we get some kind of briefing on what that means for us as well?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Then it is 3:11, and we are going to go into executive session for 30 minutes for the reasons and the people just stated by Mark McLean, our civil attorney. When we come out, we will adjourn. We will be adjourning for the day. So we will no longer have any meetings. And so we will adjourn at that time. So it's again 3:11, and we anticipate 30 minutes. Thank you.